Okay, you can see the new headphones from Byron, except I'm going to take them off because I don't like how my voice sounds. Okay, so Ultimate Fighter is done. I will probably be doing this video and then another video, which will be the finale picks. This is my Tuf Aftermath video. This is basically when I talk about, you know, what happens now for the fighters that were involved in this season of the Ultimate Fighter. Now we have a unique occurrence this time, as there were some guys who wanted to get on the show and did not get to fight, and I'm going to kind of review each of their respective situations. At 205, there's Antoine Britt. Antoine Britt beat Ryan Jimmo by majority decision, I do believe, and then broke his hand. Not the type of fighter I think we'll see in the UFC again, because he's primarily a wrestler and not a brawler, which is of course what Dana White likes. I mean, he's kind of one of those guys who doesn't have enough talent to be kind of like elite level, and if you're not going to do that, you better be a very exciting fighter, and he's just not. So we probably won't see him. Karen Gregorian, somewhat in the same boat, although he did. He is from Team Link, and Team Link in the UFC. I mean, we got Gabriel Gonzaga and Paulo Fio maybe being in the UFC, so I don't know. Maybe he could find himself there just because of Team Link connections, but I doubt it. And then we have Brian McLaughlin, the lightweight. He might actually come back just because fairly well-rounded and fairly exciting fighter. We could see him, although I think he's a bit undersized for lightweight, so more of a WC prospect. That does it for the fighters that won fights but didn't get to fight in the house, so to speak. Moving on, we have the guys who lost and are not fighting the finale. So at the 205ers, Kyle Kingsbury, first of all, probably not. He may make the UFC someday, because if he picks up a ground game, he's actually going to be a fairly good fighter, because he does have good wrestling, good takedown defense, and he is a pretty good kickboxer. So it would be foreseeable in the future that Kyle Kingsbury could fight in the UFC, but not now. He does not have the toolbox required. Shane Prim, somewhat the same boat. He does have all the tools, but he's a developing fighter. We'll see if maybe he can someday also make the UFC. I wouldn't rule it out entirely. Jules Boucher, I would rule it out entirely. He's a little too old to be as raw as he is, and he doesn't have a great background in anything like a Matt Hamill or a Josh Koscheck that we've seen in previous seasons with their wrestling, and Amir Sadala with his sambo and kickboxing. So I do not think we'll see him at any point in the UFC. Next up we have Tom Lawler. Probably never going to be in the UFC past the finale, really, I think. Although I am actually picking him to win on the finale, so I guess he would probably actually get a couple fights. But long term, no. Lawler, he's a well-rounded guy. I mean, he has all the tools you look for, and he's pretty exciting in doing it. But he's just not good enough at anything, I don't think, to really warrant a spot in the stacked 205 division. Additionally, I think he's too small. I think he should really go down to middleweight. And if he does that, I could possibly see him in the UFC, because his wrestling may take it to the next level, just because I think sometimes, I mean, wrestling is sometimes dictated by the fact that you're smaller than the guy and you can't do anything. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. We also have Elliot Marshall. Again, a maybe. Elliot Marshall has all the tools, but he didn't impress Dana White in his fight with Ryan Bader. I think that is key. I think we'll see him in the UFC for a little bit, because he's fighting Jules Boucher on the finale, and obviously I'm taking him in that fight, so I'm giving away a couple of my finale picks. But I don't see a long-term thing for him. Next up, Krzysztof Sosinski. I think we will see Krzysztof in the UFC for a fair hit, because Krzysztof is a Team Quest guy for one thing, and we know Dana's got seemingly decent relationships with Team Quest. It's a top organization. You think he will improve, and I do believe so. He also has Randy Couture connections, which is always good. He has very good striking. He's a pretty decent wrestler, and he does have a fairly good level of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does need to get better, as does his wrestling, as does his striking. He just needs to improve and continue to get better and better as a fighter, and I think he could. None of these guys, I think, really shake the 205 division, but, you know, they can be around, basically. What else am I missing? Elliot's covered, Krzysztof's covered. I think everyone lost the around. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so that's 205 done. On to lightweight. Felipe Nover, well, and the finalist Ryan Bader, I think, is the better future in the UFC, just because he is a stud wrestler who does actually have some striking and ground and pound and submission ability. I think in the Elliot Marshall fight, he gassed a little too much, and I think something he should maybe consider doing is losing a bit of the muscle mass that he has, because the muscles are sucking the oxygen out of him, and it's vastly affecting his cardio. Because, I mean, the wrestlers, they tend to be just endless batteries of energy, and he just lost it. So I think lose a bit of the muscle mass, continue to improve as a fighter, and you will, I think, maybe find yourself a mid-level position in the UFC. Vinicius Malhegas, dangerous for anyone, because I think he can submit anyone without a doubt in the UFC, but his wrestling is very suspect and his striking is very suspect. It's hard to imagine a guy who your only real thing you have to look out for is a guard pull being all that successful in the UFC. There are guys that he can beat, and if he wins at the finale, obviously they'll try to build him. They always do, but I just don't. And he's also now training with Pro-Am MMA with Gabe Rudiker and no real other notable fighters, and I don't think that's going to really help him. That's the problem, really. I think he's just taken the wrong MMA career path in some areas, and that's going to hurt him, I think. On to the lightweights, we have Felipe Nover and Efren Escudero in the finale. I believe Felipe Nover has a bright future in the UFC. He is a reasonably large lightweight. He is well-rounded. He has that killer instinct. He hits, according to Nogueira, he's the hardest hitting lightweight he's ever seen, and that's high praise coming from Nogueira. So I do believe he has somewhat of a future in the UFC. I think some people who are thinking him as a title contender, maybe down the road, but immediately I think we're looking at a middle level guy, kind of like what to a certain extent Joe Stevenson was originally, and Kenny Florian. Next up, Efren Escudero, his opponent. Efren's a little bit small. I do see him joining the Zuffa family, but I do actually think it will be WBC at featherweight. That is my opinion. I think Efren can do a lot of good things there with his pretty good wrestling. He has decent striking and decent grappling. Next, we have Junie Allen Browning. He's fighting Dave Kaplan in what I believe probably will be a win-or-go-home fight. If he can beat Dave Kaplan, I think he will probably get some fights, but they did give him one of the harder guys, not in the finale. In Kaplan, I do believe he is the second best lightweight, not in the finale, behind Shane Nelson. Junie has tremendous potential. He's apparently living with Sean Tompkins and training with Extreme Couture. So I think we could see really a change. I mean, if he can get his attitude right, I think it would work. He is a very good athlete, and it does seem like he does have some skills. It's just he breaks mentally, and that's all there is to it. Shane Nelson, BJ Penn student, he needs to basically develop in all aspects of the game, but he could possibly be at least a WEC level lightweight. George Roop, if he develops more, I think we could see him in WEC and maybe the UFC someday, but I don't think he's quite ready yet. Rolly Delgado, wrong weight class. You need to develop your wrestling, buddy. You need to develop some boxing to make that reach. John Polkowski, Chuck Liddell's buddy, but dude, Polkowski is more like a bantamweight-sized fighter, to be quite honest. And if he cut down to bantamweight, I think he could be possibly kind of deadly, because he's got decent takedown defense. He's a pretty good kickboxer. If he could develop his ground game more, I think we could see a decent future from him, maybe in the WEC at bantamweight, but at lightweight, no, there is nothing I really see for him. I believe that covers everybody. Oh, diving Dave Kaplan, fighting Junie Allen Browning. Dave has all the physical skills and all the technical skills required to be a pretty decent fighter. His only problem is he's 5'6" and reach is not his friend. So that's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that throughout his career if he does make it in the UFC. He also has to get rid of the idea that he cannot be knocked out, because guess what? We can all be knocked out. Mark Hunt can be knocked out. The Nog can be knocked out. It's just a fact of life. It can happen. And that's all there is to it. So that covers everything, all of them. As for my overall thoughts on the series, Frank Mir came off as a considerable dick. Nogueira came off as a nice guy. I believe the depiction of Nogueira pretty accurate, because I do really think he is a nice guy. I've never met him, so I can't really say for sure. I can't imagine Frank Mir is honestly that big of a dick, though. I think creative editing to make him more of the bad guy comes into play there. And that's about all, other than Dana White should kick Junie Allen Browning out of the house, like the second episode or so. I guess it would have been the fourth episode, second fight. Anyways, I'm done, and I will be back with my finale pick.